I never imagined my brave act would lead to a billionaire's heart. Now, he can't forget my warmth. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started with a soft drizzle that hung in the air like a secret, a thick fog that wrapped around the city and blurred its familiar edges. I stood in the alley, heart pounding, hands trembling. There was a dark figure there, ominous and quiet. I could feel my breath catch in my throat as I noticed the flicker of his eyes. The whispers of the street were loud, drowning my thoughts, but I pressed on, my gut nudging me forward. "Help!" I shouted, more out of fear than certainty. The man looked up, surprised. He was tall and imposing, but behind that stature, I sensed a flicker of vulnerability. I didn't know then how that single moment would alter my life forever. That I have always been drawn to the underdog, the ones carrying invisible weights. It's all I've known. My mother, with her weary eyes, used to tell me stories of heroes, of bravery that went unnoticed. I thought I could be different. I thought I could be brave. That day, I knelt in the rain, inches from his dark shoes, the cold seeping into my bones. I could hear the whispers of the passers-by, murmuring their judgments, their curiosity. What is she doing? Is she crazy? But all that faded as I locked eyes with him. "Please, you need to come with me. Let me help you." As I stood, a slow silence fell between us. That's when the sirens erupted, pulling me from my courage. Suddenly, chaos surrounded us. The man turned, panic knotting his brow. I cannot explain why I reached out, but in that breathless moment, I pulled him close. It was a risk. It was everything. We dashed into the shadows, and I could feel his heart thrumming like a wild bird against my own chest. Soon, we found ourselves in a sprawling penthouse, the kind of place that felt untouchable, gilded edges and polished marble. He was a billionaire, a shadowy figure entangled in a world I didn't belong to, but I could see it in his eyes. He was lost. "Who are you?" he murmured, as if my presence was a dream that I wanted to answer with all that I was, but I was still trembling from the adrenaline, from the fear, from the rush of bravery I had tapped into. A whirlwind of thoughts spun in my head. Was I chasing invisible ghosts, or was there something real here? I could feel the warmth radiating from him, a fragile ember in my chest, and then came the unexpected. Days churned into weeks, each moment thickening the air between us. He couldn't forget my warmth, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was unfolding, something he wasn't ready to reveal. Conversations flickered on the edge of truth, both of us holding back secrets like fragile glass. A light flickered in his darkened eyes when he shared whispers of his past. I brought him warmth while he carried a wealth of mysteries. But with every shared laugh and quiet moment on his balcony overlooking the city, I felt an unsteady rhythm in my heart. What was he keeping hidden? And why did it feel like the world was watching, waiting for a single spark to ignite everything? As I stood there, looking over the skyline, his hand brushed my shoulder lightly. Was it a promise or a prelude to heartbreak? My heart raced faster, echoes of uncertainty shifting beneath the surface. Could I really trust this man who danced between shadows and light? My mind was a battlefield of questions. In that charged silence, I watched him uncoil, the tension coiling around us tight. What was hidden in his billion-dollar empire? What dark secrets did he protect beneath his charming smile? And suddenly, just as I was about to speak, the phone rang. He picked it up, and his face fell. The light in his eyes dimmed, darkness creeping in. "Not now. Please," he growled, and it hit me, a whisper like wind through the trees. He was a man bound, locked in an unseen cage. Without warning, he turned to me, urgency etched into every line of his face. "You need to leave now before it's too late." The walls seemed to close in around me. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. Outside, the city continued its relentless wake, but inside, everything stood still. What lay ahead? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air between us crackled with an unbearable tension, his words cutting through the haze of confusion. You need to leave now before it's too late. The urgency in his voice pinned me in place, my heart racing from the jarring shift that loomed. Why? What is going on? I felt my voice trembling, my throat tightening as unease gnawed at the edges of my mind. His back was now turned to me, his fingers gripping the phone tightly as he paced like a cornered animal, taut and filled with dread. Just trust me. His eyes searched the room, flickering toward the door as if he were trying to foresee what awaited beyond it. The billionaire was so much more than an enigma, he was a tempest waiting to unleash its fury, but the echo of his plea reverberated through me, thickening the air. I was not a bystander to his storm, I had been pulled into its very heart, whether I wanted to be or not. I can't just leave you, I whispered. My heart ached at the thought, my instincts urged me to stay close, to break through the layers of his guarded faade. In that moment of desperation, I took a step toward him, grounding myself in our shared silence. Please tell me what is happening, I said softly, yearning for connection even as the shadows pressed in around us. He paused, his hand falling to his side, a war raging in the depths of his expression. Then, just as he seemed ready to speak, the phone rang again. This time, the call made him flinch, eyes wide, as if the sound ignited an old wound. No, not now. Before I could even grasp the weight of what that meant, he had already silenced the call with a tense swipe, his breath coming in short gasps. Suddenly, he turned back to face me, desperation spilling over. I have people who won't stop until they find me. Until they find us. The words were like ice, threatening to freeze my resolve as his stare bore into me, a mix of fear and yearning. If they discover you, my heart stopped, the gravity of his reality crashing down. I reached for him, my hand brushing against his arm. You don't have to do this alone, I murmured, the warmth of my voice cutting through the chill that crept around us. I wanted to hold on to that flicker of hope, his warmth and vulnerability amidst the chaos. That he looked down at my hand, the tension easing just slightly before the storm spun back. You have no idea what you're getting into. His voice cracked like fragile ice underfoot. I can't lose you. I won't let that happen. But an unseen wall began to form around him, a barrier that threatened to shut me out. Suddenly there was a knock at the door, firm and unyielding. My heart raced as dread pooled in my stomach. It was a reminder that the outside world was still alive and thriving, while we were lost in our own tumultuous reality. Please, hide. He urged, almost panicked. I felt the sharp edge of uncertainty compress my chest. Just for a moment. Adrenaline kicked in, and in a split second, I was darting behind a tall, dark-colored vase that somehow felt as though it would shield me from whatever fate awaited him. The polished surface seemed to blur the lines between presence and absence, desire and fear. The door creaked open, and my heart pounded violently in my chest. I strained to listen, catching snippets of a voice I didn't recognize, assertive and uncompromising. You need to come with us. You know what's at stake. His response was a low murmur, filled with an edge of defiance that only deepened the troubling tension. I'm not going anywhere with you. The sound of his rejection resonated through the air, sending chills down my spine. The conversation escalated, voices clashing like stormy waves against rocks. My pulse quickened with each strained syllable. I wanted to break free from my hiding place, to stand beside him, but fear gripped my limbs, weighing me down. Whatever was happening out there felt monumental, riddled with impending loss. Then, in a moment that felt like eternity, I heard a desperate plea escape his lips. Just go get out of here. I can't lose you. Those words shattered the mask of fear I had been wearing. I could stay in the shadows and shield myself from the unknown, or step into the light of his world, however treacherous it might be, but before I could decide, a sharp crash echoed through the penthouse, splintering through the heavy atmosphere. The door splintered further, and suddenly, the situation spiraled out of control. Seconds passed, and I could hardly breathe as I peered through the vase. His frame was tense, poised for a fight, but I knew he couldn't take on whatever was beyond the threshold alone. Just as I drew a sharp breath to leap out and confront whatever awaited us, a figure stepped into the room, and the metal glint of a weapon caught the light. My heart dropped into an abyss of fear. In that moment, the reality of our precarious existence crashed down, and I realized the stakes were impossibly high. I was bound to him, caught between hope and despair, uncertainty wrapping tightly around my soul. What were we up against? Would my brave act be enough to shield us both from the tumult that loomed ahead? The cliff of the unknown approached with terrifying speed. It felt as if the ground beneath me would give way at any moment, and that was when the truth hung in the air thick and suffocating. The implications of his plea seeped through the shattered remnants of our lives, and I understood in my bones that nothing would ever be the same again. The danger was real, and love alone might not be enough to rescue us from this shadowy abyss. The room held its breath, suspended in the weight of impending chaos. My heart raced as the figure stepped fully into view, and it was not some faceless threat but someone familiar, a ghost I had hoped never to cross paths with again. It was Julian, a man who wielded power and influence like a blackjack dealer shuffling cards, his infamy woven into the underbelly of their world. My pulse quickened, his presence was a catalyst for dread, and yet I sensed something else flickering beneath my fear, an urge to fight. "Not you," I whispered to myself, but the sound escaped my lips, barely audible against the tension that thickened the air. I stole another glance at the billionaire, who stood resolute, though I could see the tremor of uncertainty in his clenched fists. "What do you want, Julian?" he said, voice laced with a blend of authority and urgency. I couldn't tear my eyes away from him, my gut twisted at the knowledge that whatever lay ahead would change everything. Julian grinned, confidence seeping through like poison. "Oh, just the usual. Asset retrieval. But I never expected such delightful company with you tonight, Ethan." His eyes darted toward me, cold and calculating, and my body froze as I became acutely aware of how exposed I was behind the vase. "Get out," Ethan replied, low and dangerous, a snarl brewing beneath his facade of calm. "You don't want to do this." But Julian stepped forward, an unnatural calm settling over him. "It's too late for that. You should know better than to think you can play this game alone." Words like daggers flew, and I felt the walls of the penthouse closing in, a prison of my own making. I wanted desperately to scream, to shatter the tension that crackled like electricity in the room, but my voice felt trapped within a cage of apprehension. I caught a hint of trembling in Ethan's hands as he faced Julian, the slightest indication of the battle that loomed. "Leave her out of this." Ethan's voice boomed with desperation, a protective instinct rising to the surface. It was my shield, infused with love, yet it could not warp the reality that Julian had come for a reckoning. "With all due respect," Julian sneered, "she's already in it. Whether she likes it or not. You think you can escape this life? The moment you were seen with me, you painted a target on her back." His words were venomous, designed to pierce through the armor of resolve that wrapped around my heart. Ethan took a step closer to me, a fierce intensity igniting his gaze. "You don't have to be here. You can walk away, right now. Forget everything you saw." "Forget?" I felt the chasm between us widen, aching and raw. "Ethan, I didn't come this far to run away when the stakes are raised." My voice broke, the adrenaline surging through me. Julian's expression shifted, amusement blending with curiosity as he studied me. "Ah, what a brave little bird you are. But, sweet girl, do you truly know the hand you've been dealt? There is no walking away from us, not now." The air was thick with unspoken truths, pulsing with an electric dread. Yet, in that moment of desperation, something within me ignited. I sensed the depths of my feelings colliding with purpose, clarity washing over me like a tide against the shore. I took a step forward, adrenaline flooding my veins. Whatever it is that you want, Julian, you will not take him from me. Ethan's eyes widened in surprise, but I felt weighty resolve hardening beneath my frail exterior. A small voice inside screamed that this was reckless, that I was playing with fire, yet I couldn't retreat. I wasn't backing down now. Julian's laughter echoed against the walls, sharp and condescending. What are you going to do, darling? You think you can protect him? You have no idea what kind of darkness you're tampering with. But then I noticed a flicker pass through Ethan's eyes briefly, an ember of hope ignited, shooting straight through the storm. Just then, without warning, the sound of sirens pierced the stillness, distant yet hauntingly familiar, like a warning bell tolling in the night. My heart sank. Sand slipping quickly through an hourglass that didn't have enough time left. "Time's up, boys," Julian said, a sinister note of satisfaction coating his words. "It looks like our little game has come to an end. I'll give you one option, Ethan, come with me peacefully, or I can ensure she's in a world of hurt." Ethan looked at me, his gaze a tumult of emotions, fear, desperation, but above all, love. And in that fleeting moment, I understood the gravity of choice looming on the horizon. The sirens grew closer, their echo blending with the churn of chaos, and I felt the walls starting to crumble around us. That I took a deep breath, anchoring all my courage as I moved closer to him, fingers brushing against his. "If you think I'll let him go, you underestimate what I'm willing to fight for." But Julian's cold, calculating smile widened as if savoring the moment, enjoying the maneuvering of pieces on a chessboard. "It's your funeral, sweet girl." And then, with a single sweeping gesture, he turned his gaze back to Ethan. "Choose. You have 2 minutes. Or else." The sirens roared louder outside and my heart ached, twisted and frayed as my world hung by a single thread, fluttering dangerously in the wind. As uncertainty gripped me, everything hung in the balance: love, pain, conflict, and the terrifying realization that time was slipping through our fingers while Julian stood ready to orchestrate our fate. Would Ethan choose to protect me, or would he make the ultimate sacrifice? In that haunting moment, the abyss of despair yawned wide, and I felt the heartbeat of inevitability echoing through my very being, sealing the fate of our fractured lives. The sirens wailed, their urgency slicing through the tension like a knife, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed that time had suspended itself around us. In that suffocating silence, where every breath felt like a costly gamble, I grasped Ethan's hand tighter, not wanting to let go. We were two souls tethered by fear and hope, colliding in a universe fraught with peril. "Ethan," I whispered, searching his gaze for clarity, anything that would guide us through the labyrinth that Julian had conjured. "We can't let him win. We can find a way out." His eyes flitted between mine and Julian's, the weight of his decision palpable, and I could feel the tremors of doubt settling in the space that had once been filled by our shared laughter. "I don't want to lose you," he confessed, raw vulnerability spilling from him like an open wound. "But if I don't surrender, he will hurt you." "No." I shook my head, my heart pounding in a furious rhythm. "We can't concede to someone like him. There has to be a way." I glanced back at Julian, his expression molded into a mask of sadistic pleasure, feeding off the despair he had orchestrated. Julian's voice dripped with mockery, a melody of twisted amusement. "You speak of fighting, but darling, you've already lost. He's just prolonging the inevitable." He turned back toward Ethan, smoothing his tie with calculated confidence. "You can keep this charade going, but tell me, how long can you protect her when you're risking her safety every moment?" The truth hung heavy between us like a sword poised to drop, and I could see the gears turning in Ethan's mind, each turning moment drenching him in deeper anguish. "I'm sorry," he whispered, barely audible over the thumping sirens that echoed ominously in the distance. "But I refuse to let the sorrow consume us. Ethan, listen to me. I believe in you. We can do this together." My fingers squeezed his, anchoring us in that bleak moment. "If we're going to fight him, we have to be united. Tell me what to do." Julian sneered, "Time is running out, my dear. This isn't a game of seesaw, this is your life on the line, and I hold the strings." His eyes glimmered with sadistic glee as he glanced at the window, where red and blue lights flashed like fireflies caught in an unrelenting storm. Suddenly, an idea sparked in my mind, so wild I wasn't sure if it was reckless or brilliant. Ethan. What if we pretended to agree to his terms? If we can buy ourselves time. What? He replied, his brows knitting together, confusion shadowing his worry. Just listen, I pressed urgently. While he believes we're playing along, we can strategize, look for a way to escape before he can make a move. We can lead him into a false sense of security. Ethan hesitated, swallowing hard. You trust him to let his guard down? Yes, I insisted, my heart racing with conviction. He'll underestimate us. He already thinks I'm just a girl in over her head. But together, he won't see us coming. A flicker of hope sparked in Ethan's expression, but fear still tangled with desperation in his eyes. If we do this, you need to stay close. I won't let him take his eyes off you. The sirens crescendoed, and I could feel Julian grow impatient, the walls themselves quaking with the weight of his malice. Your time is ticking down, my dear heroes. Make your choice. Okay, Ethan said slowly, resolving to brave the uncertainty. We'll play your game. His voice trembled slightly, but there was a new fire beneath his steely exterior. Julian's lips twisted, clearly savoring our submission. Smart boy. Come now, everything is about to change. Before we could collect our thoughts, Julian stepped between us, his presence looming large, a shadow eclipsing the light of hope we dared to hang on to. But as the minutes dragged on and twice as many lies formed the foundation of our new strategy, there was a warming confidence rising within me that he'd never expect. Just then, a loud crash erupted from somewhere outside, glass shattered near the entrance. The echoes of footsteps and hurried voices filled the air, and I realized something was on the cusp of breaking loose. Julian, what was that? I croaked, instinctively leaning closer to Ethan, a shiver coiling around my spine. Julian's composure weakened for the slightest moment, frowning as he turned toward the commotion. What now? He snapped under his breath, irritation flickering on his face. Ethan took advantage of the distraction, his grip around my wrist tightening as he leaned in to whisper urgently, we need to move. Now. Before I could respond, Ethan pulled me toward a doorway, but Julian quickly regained control, blocking our escape with an icy glare. Running away won't save you, he hissed, a tinge of lunacy dancing in his eyes, and then it struck. Amidst the chaos and the chaos roaring louder than the dread within, one stark truth loomed larger than life. That love, in its relentless tenacity, armed us, yet it also bound us in chains of unresolved conflict. The footsteps drew closer, voices echoing, and just when it seemed we would make our break, Julian caught me off guard, his arm shooting out to grab my shoulder. Oh, dear girl, where do you think you're going? The urgency spiking within my chest morphed to panic as I realized that my brave act had drawn the ire of a man who thrived on control. And then, the shocking revelation came pouring out through the door, piercing through the other cacophonous sounds. A tall silhouette surged into view, masked by the glow of lights, recognition dawning. It was someone I'd never expect to see here, not now, not ever, yet equally entwined in the fabric of the life I thought I left behind. Release her, Julian, the voice growled, unmistakable, rife with authority and protection. My heart pounded viciously against my ribcage, encased in the rapture of chaos. Everything hinged on this moment, and I was frozen, paradoxically suspending my thoughts between hope and dread, knowing that life as we knew it would never be the same again. The room felt like it was spinning as I registered the voice that cut through the tension like a dagger. I had never imagined seeing him here, not now, not after everything that had transpired. Liam, my estranged brother, stood framed in the doorway, the echo of his presence warping reality itself. Liam. My heart twisted painfully in my chest, a tumult of joy and disbelief. I couldn't find words to express the sheer terror and gratitude flooding through me all at once. My brother, the one who walked away from everything, now stood defiantly against Julian. Julian's grip tightened around my shoulder, his face contorting into a scowl that turned his playful guise into something bloodthirsty. You dare interfere? He spat, his confidence wavering under the weight of Liam's imposing presence. Let her go, Julian, Liam repeated, his voice steady and unyielding, resonating with an authority that silenced the chaos around us. The sirens had quieted, almost respectful in their murmur, as if bracing themselves for the inevitable clash. Julian's lips curled into a sardonic smirk, but I could see the flicker of fear pooling behind his eyes. And what will you do, Liam? You think you can just waltz in here and save the day? She's mine to toy with now. The air thickened, every second stretched like elastic around us, yet my heart raced for what felt like eternity. I could see Ethan's muscles tense beside me, a brewing storm held at bay. In this moment, I realized we were at the precipice of a truth no one had anticipated, yet all had been rooted in family entanglements and deep-seated rivalry. Liam took a bold step forward, undeterred by Julian's threats. I've spent too long letting you destroy what should never been yours to claim. His voice was a low growl, one that awakened memories long buried, a brother I had idolized, a protector. Kill the theatrics, Julian retorted, masking his concern under bravado. You won't change a damn thing. He twisted his grip on my shoulder, and for a moment, a chilling fear pushed down on my heart. Would he hurt me before this specter finally faded away? But even as he initiated his power play, a flicker of rage ignited inside me, merging with the horror I felt. Stop. All of you, just stop. It fell from my lips like a desperate plea, yet it did nothing to alleviate the weight of the confrontation. As my words spread through the charged atmosphere, I could sense the dynamic shifting, tension thinning just enough to allow a path of hope. Please, Liam, I pleaded, casting my gaze back to my brother, willing him to see the complexity of the situation. This isn't just about me. We're in this together now. It's not just about you and Julian. My words coursed through the room, sparking a brief moment of uncertainty, a crack in Julian's facade. What a touching familial reunion, he sneered, rattled yet still poised to attack at any turn. And the fragile pause, clinging to hope, felt impossible yet vital. I turned to Ethan, his expression a tempest of confusion and determination, and placed my other hand on his arm, a silent promise that we were still together in this fight. We can't give in, I whispered, we need to stand strong. Together. Refusing to let fear override my instincts, I met Liam's gaze, desperate to find reassurance, a shared understanding. But the tumult of emotions reflected in his eyes mirrored my own doubt, along with something else, an unshed sorrow, an unspoken bond frayed by our estrangement. Julian, sensing the uncertainty growing, took a step back, centering himself with an unnerving calm. You're just prolonging the suffering. You think this is about family? This is a game of survival, it's about who can withstand the most pain. Enough. Liam's commanding tone broke through Julian's taunts, his fierce loyalty ignited. You won't destroy her. If you want to fight, then you'll have to go through me first. My heart swelled watching Liam step forward, his stance unwavering as he faced down the monster that had been orchestrating my despair. Yet, beneath that sense of hope, a heavy weight crushed down. Liam had lost so much to Julian's web, how could I allow him to face this? Just as I was about to voice my concerns, another unexpected clash erupted, a fervent rattle, the door bursting open with sheer force. Officers flooded the room, the wave of blue uniforms racing in like a tide of order crashing against Julian's chaos. Hands up! Everyone! The lead officer shouted, and my breath caught in my throat as chaos shifted. The torrent of authority fought against Julian's grip, my body caught between the safety of law enforcement and the risk Julian posed. Julian! I could barely manage the words, choking on fear as I was tossed between the threats. If law enforcement didn't take him down, what could he unleash next? But as destiny wove its obeying strands, I caught a fleeting glance, a spark of sharp understanding in Liam's eyes, a secret coded in the chaos. He turned to Ethan, searching for clarity. You need to trust me, he implored, urgency clinging to his every word. That it clicked. I saw it on Ethan's face that he understood all too well, that this wasn't an ordinary fight. We had a pivotal decision to make, the outcome of which could reshape everything. Caught in the tempest, I echoed my brother's sentiment, and just when it seemed our steps would falter, a vital truth wove itself through the air, burning fiercely. Love could be the anchor we needed to navigate the storm, or it could become a wound too deep to heal. But then I noticed Julian moving with deft agility, eyes flaring with malice as he prepared to strike. "You have no idea what you're all dealing with," he hissed, and I knew then that everything was about to change irrevocably. The surreal intensity shattered around us in that moment, with sirens swirling outside the hollow confines of urgency, confusion raged, and reality blurred even further. As the officers pressed forward, Julian's intentions hung heavy in the air. And just as I grasped what could be the final seconds before chaos unveiled its full purpose or salvation, the room exploded with an unanticipated disruption, a truth intended to haunt, an echo of someone who I thought was lost. "Get back!" a voice, familiar yet steeped in dread, cut through the fray, a presence I had never expected to join the chaos. My heart plummeted as my worst fears materialized, spiraling into the unknown, wrapped tightly around fate as it spiraled into the abyss. The chaos enveloped us, the officers shouting commands mingling with the pounding of my heart as adrenaline surged through my veins. My eyes darted, searching for any sign of reassurance amidst the storm. When I heard it again, "Get back!" I turned, and there he was, Oliver, the man who had once been my confidant, my ally, and in a twist of fate I could hardly fathom, someone who now commanded attention simply by stepping through the doorway. His handsome face, lined with tension, brought both comfort and anxiety racing to the surface. It felt like stepping onto a precarious cliff, on one side, joy, and on the other, dread. "Oliver!" I called out, my voice strangled by the weight of everything unsaid between us. Yet he stood tall, fierce in his determination, body poised to shield me from the very darkness I had been battling. In this oppressed moment, there was a flicker of hope, a possibility of connected strength resonating through the air. "Stay behind me, Jessica," he instructed, his tone firm as if he commanded everyone's attention, even Julian's. "This is my fight too." Julian's eyes blazed, recognizing the challenge posed by Oliver. "You think you can just waltz back in here and play hero?" He sneered, and the disdain dripped from his voice like poison. In that instant, the world shifted. The realization swept over me that Oliver's reappearance could either turn the tide or heighten the tension further. My love for him surged back, mingled with the pain of separation as if a dam had burst. "What are you doing here?" I almost shouted, desperate to know how things could spiral into this perilous drama, yet simultaneously wanting to protect that newfound tether I felt in his presence. Before he could respond, Liam moved forward, still standing resolutely between me and Julian's lurking threat. "This isn't just about you anymore, Oliver." Liam's voice bellowed, raw with emotion, revealing the tangled web of our lives. I could see the conflict building in his eyes, a mix of protective instinct laced with anxiety over the havoc Julian would wreak if we failed to unite. "Trust me, Liam," Oliver replied, his own eyes catching mine, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that had once forged our paths so closely. "We need to end this once and for all." In that fleeting moment, I felt bound to both men who had shaped my life in different ways. My heart wrenched painfully, torn between the hope of family and a fierce desire for freedom from Julian's grip. "How?" I barely managed to whisper, but my voice carried an urgency that tethered what remained of our collective fate. "By exposing him," Oliver clarified, exuding a calm that felt almost surreal amid the tempest. "He can't function without his web of lies." But Julian's laughter sliced through the air, dark and unsettling. "You think the truth is your ally?" he taunted, circling like a predator sensing vulnerability. "Innocent words are no match for the shadows I cast." I felt a chill settle around me, as if the truth itself was mocking the fragile fabric of our reality. Would we fall apart, like so many shattered pieces before? But even through the creeping fear, I felt the warmth of Ethan's presence return, his unwavering support steadying me. His eyes shone with an understanding deeper than words, recognizing that this battle wasn't just about Julian. It was about finding light in our individual choices, navigating complex relationships, and discovering what truth meant to us all. "Together," he murmured, his soul echoing my prayer. "Liam." I exclaimed, sensing a shift. Oliver's right. It's more than just confronting Julian. We have to expose his influence. We have leverage, don't we? People who believe in us. The fabric of hope we wove with our collective thoughts felt fragile yet charged with a stubbornness that surged and danced around us. Even in darkness, glimmering threads of light flickered. Maybe it wasn't just the end, but a beginning if we remembered who we were individually and as a family. Don't get lost in the game he plays, Liam cautioned, locking eyes with me. We need to synchronize our moves. He'll strike if he senses weakness. The surge of adrenaline still coursing through my veins made me feel almost invincible as my determination revived. I could feel a new surge of courage driving us forward, arguably the most powerful weapon we had against Julian's weapons of deceit. Let us do it together. We find the truth, and we unravel him. We expose him. For a brief moment, a silence filled the room, a fragile stillness resting between the polarized forces. The officers had tightened their ranks, but the atmosphere held more tension than ever. It felt like a grand storm was brewing, ready to pour at any second. Then, in one final, desperate push, Julian lunged forward, his eyes wild with fury. The last vestiges of control he possessed vanished, relinquishing him to primal rage. You think you're safe? You've really underestimated what I can do. And in the instant that followed, the explosion of chaos erupted around us. Fear ignited like a bomb, and chaos erupted. Fists moved, shouts pierced the air, and bodies surged toward each other in a cacophony of conflict and resolution. But lost amidst the chaos, I gasped as I spotted a shadow moving through the throng of bodies, cloaked in darkness, the telltale glint of a familiar necklace illuminating the fear lurking only a breath away. It sent a chill rushing through me, an ominous reminder. The truth carved deeper shadows and even darker secrets, and I could feel it at my core as a sudden dread grappled me tight. Oliver! I yelled, and I reached for him, desperation clawing at my lungs. Don't let him! But the storm caught us, and as bodies collided, the moment of clarity erupted into chaos. Just when I thought the pieces could finally align, the shadows shifted yet again, and I realized too late what stakes we were playing for. Tonight, one way or another, everything was going to change forever. As the tumult intensified, my heart raced, a relentless drum accelerating into a frantic crescendo. The cacophony around us blended into a haunting melody of betrayal and raw desperation. I strained to catch a glimpse of Oliver, my mind whirling with fragmented thoughts and unspoken fears. Somewhere within that chaos, I felt the shattering potential of everything we forged, everything I hoped would rise from the ashes of the past. With Julian's aggression engulfing us, I found myself swept back into the memories that had laced our histories together, the shared moments of laughter, whispered secrets, and dreams that had once brought warmth. How cruel it felt to have those vestiges of joy tainted by the shadow of this spiraling descent. Suddenly, an electrifying surge of panic jolted through me as I spotted Ethan ahead. He was sidestepping a clash between two officers. Jessica! He shouted, desperation threading through his voice. But before I could respond, Julian lunged again, this time with calculated malice, focusing on Oliver. Stay away from him! I screamed, breaking free from the crushing tide around me. I was determined to bridge the space between us, to intercept whatever dark intent simmered beneath Julian's fervor. But fate has a way of betraying intentions in moments of profound peril. As I sprinted closer, I felt a sudden jolt, a heavy weight bore into my shoulder as someone collided with me, sending me sprawling across the ground. A startled gasp escaped my lips, and for a moment, all I could see was the seen and the unseen captured in a single gasp of breath. The darkness enveloped me, the fears of losing everything roaring to the forefront. Yet even in that abyss, I felt a hand slip under mine, firm, unwavering. I looked up, and there was Ethan, his expression wrought with concern yet glowing with a fierce determination. I've got you, he murmured, his words bolstering my faltering resolve. Just then, the tangle of bodies shifted enough for me to see Oliver, grappling with Julian, his face a mask of controlled intensity. I watched with an urgent panic as Julian's hands wrapped around Oliver's throat, fury igniting his gaze. Time distorted in those seconds, unspooling reality like a spool of thread unfurling under duress. "Let him go!" I shouted, my voice straining against the tumult surrounding us. But my plea was swallowed by the chaos, a whisper lost to the echoes of clashing spirits. Desperation surged anew, igniting a fire within me. If I could somehow break through, then out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ethan's hand, drawing a small object from his pocket, glinting as it caught the rare light breaking through the shadows. A small vial, something that could expose the truth, severing the ties Julian had wrapped around all of us tightly. My heart surged with hope. "Ethan, the vial. Use it," I implored, struggling to rise as I grabbed his arm with my free hand. But he hesitated, his face clouded with uncertainty. "Jessica, it's dangerous. What if we expose ourselves further?" "Do it. We need to break his hold," I urged, knowing this was as much a gamble for our safety as for Oliver's liberation from Julian's suffocating grip. With the determination that had characterized our shared history, Ethan nodded, and as he hurled the vial, time expanded. Everything felt suspended in that fleeting moment between desperation and hope. The glass shattered, cascading a shimmering light through the thickened air, illuminating Julian's face with the stark reality of his dirty secrets. What is this?" Julian recoiled, his self-assured facade cracking like the fragile glass that scattered around him. Chaos erupted anew as his fury turned into frantic confusion, eyes darting to assess the ruin of his carefully crafted persona. No, you can't do this," he roared, but the weight of his malignance was crumbling beneath the surprise attack of truth. "Ollie!" I called again, the words spilling from me like a prayer, the gentle tug of hope colliding with the fear of witnessing him unravel. The more Julian destabilized, the more the murky windows of his secrets dared to expose themselves to us, but as I turned back to look at Oliver, triumph quickly turned to horror. A flash of dark realization slithered through the air, and I caught the sight of something far more sinister. Julian, backed into a corner, launched forward with wild desperation. In one swift, unexpected motion, he reached for the knife hidden beneath his jacket, a final act of aggression aimed directly at Oliver. "Look out!" I screamed one last time, but my voice faded, swallowed by the storm raging within as I felt fear morphing into a chilling sense of foreboding. Everything slowed as I watched Oliver's eyes widen, recognition crystallizing the situation, but it was too late. The moment hung suspended between us, an unbreakable bond of sacrifice woven through chaos and desperation. When the blade fell, it was not just Oliver who faced it. I felt that cold steel grazing the edges of my heart, intertwining our fates tighter than ever before. And in that bleak uncertainty, I understood one undeniable truth: the battle was far from over, but the cost had just soared to unimaginable heights. Tonight, everything was about to change, and the shadows lurking beneath our lives spoke of truths better left undiscovered, an impending storm that none of us were ready to face. The ground shook beneath me as Julian stumbled back. The knife thrust caused chaos to erupt in swirling chaos, each shout and cry vibrating through my bones. My eyes darted between my two friends, Julian's grimace twisted in rage and confusion, and Oliver, who wore the mark of shock and pain etched on his face. I felt like I was witnessing a slow-motion disaster, powerless to stop its trajectory. Ethan rushed to Oliver's side, pushing against the tide of bodies that pressed in like a torrent. "Stay with us, man. Please," he yelled, trying to form a barrier against Julian, who was scrambling to regain his footing in the whirlwind of madness he'd sown. That I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline surging. A sense of urgency gripped me as I shook off the remnants of shock that threatened to drown me, a paralyzing whirlwind of fear mixing with the steely resolve blossoming within. I had to keep my focus on Oliver. "Ethan. Check him. Is he hurt?" My heart raced with each word, the last syllable lingering in the air like an unrelenting weight. As Ethan knelt beside Oliver, I couldn't make out the murmur of their voices, replaced by the deafening thrall of urgency that enveloped me. I felt a burning need to protect Oliver, to shield him from the fragmenting world around us. I searched for something, anything that could give me the strength to fight back. In that moment, amid the chaos, an unexpected figure emerged from the swarm. Samantha, the quiet artist who often hung on the periphery of our circle. She had been a mere acquaintance until that moment. With surprising resolve, she squeezed through the crowd, her eyes fierce yet determined. "Jessica! Over here!" A breath of relief washed over me at the sight of her. "Help us!" I shouted, my voice rising above the tumult. As she neared, I noticed how the shadows under her eyes spoke of her own struggles, as though she had willingly chosen to tangle herself within the web of our intensified conflict. "We need to subdue him before he hurts someone else." With a nod that carried a mixture of determination and fear, Samantha picked up a discarded piece of wood, its rough edges splintered, and approached where Julian had regained his stance. "This is over," she cried, her voice ringing clear through the chaos, a beacon of misplaced bravery in the face of madness. The moment shifted as Julian's focus broke. "You think you can stop me with a stick?" He spat, but the uncertainty flickering in his eyes told a different story. The tables had turned. "None of you are prepared for the truth that lies ahead. Care to share that truth?" Samantha shot back, emboldened by the energy spinning around us. My breath caught in my throat, fearing that this moment of bravery could invite further disaster, yet I found strength in her unexpected courage. This was a chance. "Keep him distracted, Sam," I urged. But I could see the crack forming in Julian's wall, fueled by desperation and the need to dominate. As he regained a fragment of composure, the rage deepened into something darker. I could sense the shift a predator lashing out in its final moments of defeat. With every vile word that escaped his lips, I felt the ground tremble beneath me, as if the world itself was teetering on the brink of collapse, and then, there was Oliver. The moment I glanced in his direction, everything inside me ached with raw emotion. His face was pallid, almost ethereal under the flickering lights, but there was that flicker of tenacity in his eyes that I so desperately clung to. "Jessica!" he rasped, his voice a mere echo, yet it vibrated through my very core. "Hang on, Ollie. We're not done yet." I called back, the words catching on the thread of hope that wove through our joined histories. But as I spoke, fear crept its way back into my heart. I didn't know how much longer he could hold on against Julian's dark intentions. Julian began to advance again, eyes trained on Oliver. "You're finished," he shouted, the air around us charged with malicious energy. A wave of fury coursed through me, igniting a fire so fierce I could hardly contain it. "No!" I screamed, redoubling my resolve as I rushed toward Julian, fueled by a fierce protectiveness for Oliver. "You will not hurt him again." But before I could reach him, another voice erupted from the fray. "Julian!" An unfamiliar presence twisted the air, rippling through the crowd, and I spun to see a tall figure emerging, commanding attention like an irresistible force. It was Carter, a figure I thought was just a rumor, Oliver's estranged father, a man cloaked in wealth, power, and divisive rumors. "What are you doing here?" Julian snarled, panic throbbing with each word. Carter's cold gaze swept the scene, taking in the wounded and the resilient alike, lingering for a heartbreaking moment on his son. "I'm taking back what's mine," he declared, and the confidence he radiated held more power than Julian's rage. Everything froze, the air tingling with the weight of secrets tumbling toward the surface. I felt icy apprehension grip me, the unexpected twist of fate spinning our fates anew. "Jessica," Oliver Ethan whispered, dread weaving into his tone. But it was too late. The storm was already doing its work, and as I stood there, the weight of it pressed down on all of us, I knew that our battles were only just beginning. What unknown truths, masked in gilded deceit, were about to surface from Carter's arrival? In that suspended moment, an invisible thread began to weave a new tapestry of complications, a monumental shift that would steer us toward an uncertain future. And deep down, I feared the impending storm wouldn't just test our bonds, it threatened to unravel everything we thought we knew. As the tension in the air thickened, my mind raced with implications. Carter's sudden arrival could change everything. But as fear clawed at my insides, I had no time to indulge that anxiety. All I could focus on was Oliver, whose fragile existence seemed to hang by a mere thread. Just as Carter took a step forward, the crowd seemed to inhale in unison, countless eyes flitting between Julian and the imposing figure of Oliver's father. But as the next moment unfurled, I could see the storm brewing within Julian, his expression a volatile cocktail of rage and confusion, preparing to spill over in a violent response. "No one is taking him!" Julian roared, the words laced with desperation as he clutched the knife he'd wielded moments before, its blade glistening in the frail light filtering through the chaos. It was a warning shot, and those who had momentarily rallied behind the courage of Samantha's Woodstick began to waver, uncertainty flooding their faces. "Julian, this isn't you!" Samantha shouted, her voice echoing through the wavering tension. "You don't need to do this." In that moment, my heart broke for Julian, the boy lost in the storm of his own making, who I once thought I knew. How had we all come to this brink? Flashes of memories flooded back, a shared smile, laughter in the hallways of high school where everything felt possible. But beneath that facade, the cracks had formed long before tonight's catastrophe. Meanwhile, Oliver's breaths were uneven, each one growing fainter as Ethan remained glued to his side, urgency painted across his features. I had to act, I couldn't stand by, not when the stakes were so high. "Ethan!" I shouted, my voice cracking in desperation. "We need to get him out of here." But before Ethan could respond, a fierce shriek split through the night, an ear-piercing sound that halted the impending chaos. The crowd parted, and my chest tightened as I laid eyes on another woman emerging, her face a mask of anguish. It was Caroline, Julian's mother, the beloved librarian, drowning in heartbreak as she rushed toward her son. "Julian! Please! Stop this madness!" He faltered, the intensity of his rage wavering as he looked toward the very woman who had nurtured and shaped him, a faint flicker of recognition mixing with pure defiance. "You don't understand." He barked, anguish-lined, yet the softness in his eyes hinted at a vulnerability he tried so desperately to suppress. As Caroline reached him, she took hold of his arm, the warmth of a mother's touch attempting to thaw the ice of resentment that had encased him. "Come back to us, sweetheart. We can find a way through this," she pleaded, her voice trembling with a bittersweet mixture of love and fear. With that, I felt the emotional stakes deepening again. The fragile fabric of our lives was being warped and torn, each of us battling our demons. I ached to reach out to Julian, to remind him of the light that still remained in his heart, overshadowed by the darkness that had ensnared him. But my instincts told me that standing between him and Oliver could provoke him further, a precarious dance on the edge of a knife. Then Carter stepped closer, his expression hardened now. "Enough of this. Julian, I am not here for you. I'm here to reclaim my son and protect him from your destructive ways." In that volatile moment, the air crackled with long-buried resentments. "You don't care about him, you leech." Julian spat back, his face contorting with a twisted sense of betrayal. "You abandoned us when we needed you most." Before Carter could respond, the fury of the night ignited into a grueling climax. "I will always love my son, even when I can't be with him." The conviction in Carter's voice cut through the chaos, but it was tinged with an edge of desperation that set a new fire raging within Julian. "Love? You don't get to claim that word." Julian seethed, eyes ablaze with the overflow of his turmoil. He moved back slightly, but the knife was still poised, ready to plunge at any moment if the tempest within him remained unchecked. "Julian," I called, hopeful that the power of connection, of shared history, could break through. "Remember the summer we spent at the lake? We were inseparable then." Time slowed as I watched the shift in his eyes. The war waged within him, teetering between the boy I knew and the figure he had become, was palpable, and my stomach twisted with the necessity of reconciling this fracture among us. But just as it seemed the tide might be turning, a sudden scream rang out, interrupting each of us, sending a ripple of fear through the crowd. "Look out!" Someone yelled, and in the ensuing moment of chaos, it happened. A jostling shadow broke free from the periphery, rushing forward at an impossible speed that I turned just in time to see Ethan slipping from Oliver's side, his focus transfixed on something only he could see, a lurking presence crawling through the upheaval, unleashed upon us like a tempest. Before the dread settled into my bones, the momentum carried me forward that I surged ahead into the crowd, terrified of the unknown but bound by an overwhelming surge of love for my friends, determined to protect what little remained intact. I could feel the warmth of Oliver's spirit fading behind me, but I'd be damned if I let darkness claim any more lives tonight. As I braced for what was to come, one thought blazed brighter than the chaos: we could either save each other or be lost forever, and I would fight for that chance against the shadows closing in around us. As I channeled my fear into determination, that looming shadow revealed its face, a sinister reminder of Julian's power, but also an embodiment of our collective struggle. The air crackled around us as I dashed toward Ethan, who seemed immune to the chaos, locked onto a truth that had remained obscured for too long. His fierce resolve drew me closer, igniting the fire of our shared courage. "Ethan, wait!" I shouted, my heart pounding as the urgency swirled, a whirlwind of tension and fear. But he turned, eyes ablaze with something undeniably fierce. "We need to get Oliver out of here. Now." The realization hit me like a tidal wave: we were fighting not just for our lives, but for the bond we had forged in the middle of turmoil. Ethan's fear for Oliver, a flickering light in the storm that threatened to engulf us, pushed us forward with reckless abandonment. But Julian stood in our way, insatiable and desperate. "Your pathetic memories won't save you." Julian's voice echoed like thunder, filled with malice as he thrust his knife forward. I felt my breath hitch. For a moment, I was suspended in the eerie stillness, the fear gripping my heart. "Julian!" I cried, dread pooling deep inside me. "This isn't who you are. Don't let the darkness win." I could see the spark of hesitation flicker within his cold gaze, the slightest crack against the monument of rage he had built around himself. He wavered, glancing between me and the figure that had been a part of his very essence, a family once shared, dreams entwined. "You don't know me," he hissed, anger cascading like a wave, but the tremor in his hands betrayed a simmering fragility beneath his hard exterior. In that second, I felt the weight of my own vulnerability, my own hurt gleamed in the reflection of those still waters. "You're lost, Julian. But you can still come back. Let us help you," I implored, reaching out instinctively. The ghost of our past loomed large, moments shared written against the canvas of time, a tentative bridge over the chasm of despair, but it was as if shadows cloaked him tighter, the chains of betrayal binding him resolutely to the monster he had become. "You'll never understand," he growled, stepping back but still primed for attack. "Love only leads to pain. Love means fighting for each other." I shot back fiercely. "Love means standing against the darkness, not becoming it." The words poured from me, raw and earnest, igniting a flicker of fierce hope in the depths of my heart. If only I could reach him in this abyss of torment that held him captive. In that clamor, action unfolded. Ethan lunged alongside Oliver, supporting him as they navigated the tumult, while moments hung like premonitions, threading fate together in dizzying flashes. They moved through the chaos like a single heartbeat, a united front against an unhealthy tide, but disaster struck as Julian's frustration morphed into something darker. "Enough!" he thundered, charging towards us, blade poised, and then, just when it felt as if everything was collapsing, a figure darted into view. Vera, one of the officers who had been chasing shadows through the city's underbelly, but now had emerged from the fray into the light. She barreled forward, an imposing presence causing Julian to falter. "You need to stand down, Julian," she commanded, authority ringing through her voice as she took a position between us, ready to protect, to fight. "Do you think you can save him?" Julian scoffed, but his bravado snapped against the walls of uncertainty beginning to close in on him. The weight of past mistakes bore down on him like a heavy shroud, unseen yet ever present. But then Oliver, weakened but not defeated, pushed himself onto his feet. There was a new kind of strength in his voice, desperation laced with brilliance. "Julian, you can't win, you're fighting against your own shadows. Let go of this," he urged. In that kaleidoscope of chaos, the layers of our lives began to intertwine, past and present weaving together in a tapestry of understanding. Each word held the potential to bridge the chasms of heartache, to thaw the coldness around Julian's heart. We're here for you, they're here for you, Oliver said, his gaze bolstered with fractured resolve. Shut up. Julian growled, but I saw it a flicker of doubt, a minute realization breaking through his hardened exterior. It created a bridge, a path through uncertainty that perhaps led him back to the light. Suddenly, I could see the turning point. The darkness that had defined him for far too long was finally beginning to peel away as he stood at the crossroads. I don't want to hurt any of you. He spat, frustration choking him. Then don't. I shouted, my voice rippling with urgency and truth. Just let go of the hurt. Fight for something and someone worth protecting instead. As the crescendo of emotions roared, Julian faltered, and in that moment, I reached for him, stepping beneath the weight of heartache barely threading our souls together. Let us help you find the light again. We can't be swept away by the shadows. Not with everything we've fought for. Time hung still, the world teetering on the edge of irrevocable chaos. But in Julian's eyes, something shifted as the tempest receded, revealing the vulnerable boy lost within. The blade slipped from his fingers, clattering to the ground, a symbol of relinquished control. As silence enveloped us for the briefest moment, I could see the flicker of recognition, a fierce spirit rising from the ashes. The warmth of human connection reached across the divide, healing the wounds that whispered through the tempests of our lives. And then, with a fragmented gasp, he stepped back, surrounded by shadows no longer. I want, he whispered, pain ebbing away, I can't. Before the words could be stitched together into a coherent hope, the world spiraled yet again. Everything had changed in an instant, light breaking through the darkness in a world that felt brand new. But there was more to our journey. In our midst stood the fragmented threads of family, affecting the healing that lay before us, yet potential dangers still lingered, a reminder that battles for the heart never truly conclude. Together, I whispered, hope cascading against the ages of despair, our voices rising once more. As I opened my arms, warmth surged through us, a light being birthed anew. In this sacred moment, I allowed love to drown out the shadows. Together with Oliver, Ethan, Liam, and even Julian, our burdens finally shared. With every ounce of my being, I knew that love would always outweigh the pain, and while the road would be arduous, we would weave it together into remarkable fabric. And then, as the dawn's breath swept across the horizon, illuminating our scars, I realized in that moment the journey we would take from here forward would redefine everything, one emotional step at a time. Love had won against the tide of darkness. Let us go home, I whispered, as we stepped out into the sunlight, freedom enveloping us in promising embrace. Opportunity wrapped us tightly in a tapestry of healing, our hearts aligned. This was only the beginning, a chance for renewal, for togetherness, and for love, a journey laden with new threads of hope weaving us into tomorrow's dawn. The weight of shadows finally released, we had each other under this vast sky, and nothing could ever take that away from us again.